Hello, and welcome to another video. This video will be a little bit longer than the other ones. We're going to cover Innovative Ordnance and Assault Specialist. At the top left, you'll see the implants or the set bonuses that I recommend. I pretty much only recommend these because they are vital to not only the rotation, but heat management. Going into our details, these are the stats that I run. We're running 4 alacrity pieces, so that means I'm getting alacrity from 4 different pieces of gear, whether it's ear, implant, or enhancement. 2 of them are also accuracy, and then everything else gets dumped into critical. Going into our talent selection here, there are some choices that are really personal preference. For example, I'll say at the very top, trauma regulators is definitely a must, but also recommend probably taking Jet out because mobility is a big issue and positioning is key as a range class, and Jet out will allow you to basically get there a lot faster. And since you're playing IO, you don't need on the move because all on the move gives you is on the move unload, which most of the time, if you are able to free cast, you're not actually using unload that much. It is a good ability and it's very good at hitting heavy armor targets because it does get armor penetration, though it's not like super high priority. Now, going into the lower options, it's really dependent on what you want to do. Do you want to be a more single target build or AoE build? There's definitely options. So the lower ones are personal preference. These are the ones that I use, and this is more of an AoE focused build, as the spec has good AoE, and there are situations where you will get this AoE off and it will pay off. However, if you want a more single target build or PvE kind of focused build, Volatile Warhead is one that I highly recommend at level 23. I don't remember which one from the images here that is, but it's definitely really worth getting because it makes your missile blast usable way more often. It's very good. And then the AoE thermal detonator is not bad to have. You can go with the burn one. The burn one is usually what they use in PvE. That's pretty good. However, if you want the AoE one, I think the AoE one ends up being really good if you can ever get the AoE off. But Volatile Warhead is definitely something that you should think about, and the AoE option for Incendiary is also a really nice one, though do take it with a grain of salt, as it will change the rotation and you'll be using Missile Blast way less, and if that's a problem for you, definitely take that so you don't have to use it as much. I know some people are like, man, these too many buttons. You can reduce the button usage a little bit by basically removing that talent so you don't have to use Missile Blast as much. But if you're completely fine with it, I highly recommend it because Missile Blast will now build 2 supercharged stacks, and that is super useful because having your gas up more often means you can spam more damaging moves rather than focusing on heat reduction. Now, going into our main combos. Now this is going to look like a mess, and I totally understand. The top left, we'll see basically the main combos, the very top. But in the top left, we have auto attack and net. Auto attack is usually your lowest priority filler. This is what you should use when your heat is about to cap out. You never want to go over 40%. No matter what, don't go over 40% unless you have vent heat or you're about to pop gas. Even then, beware of your heat management. Then what's underneath it is serrated something, I can't remember the name of it, incendiary missile into fusion missile. This is your main dot spread, so you have both of those dots on somebody, and then you would fusion missile, and it'll AoE dot spread around them, and it's yellow damage, so it's very nice. Then you go into thermal detonator, into mag blast, but obviously use gas before mag blast so you can get the auto crit for not mag blast, but mag shot. This will explode thermal detonator early. That's another little combo that you have on this spec. So one part dots, other part heat management. Also try to use your electronet during supercharge gas because it'll do more damage. And then going into our priority, we would have, at least on single target, Missile Blast, if it's procced, is the highest priority. Then Power Shot, then Unload, then obviously if you're venting heat, rapid shots. Now your AoE priority is death from above, then sweeping gunfire. You usually don't do more than one application of this. It's not really good for your heat, and it's not great for your damage either. And then going down below in the middle, where there's a lot of things going on here, to explain it real quick, is that you can regen to get 10 stacks. And you can pop this 10 stacks and you can regen again to have another 10 stacks ready to go. So in your opener, you can gas before that, regen, get another 10 stacks, open with your 2 dots, go into mag shot, unload, net, thermal detonator, pop your gas again, the one that you regen for. Use mag shot again. You got 2 auto crit mag shots there, and then go into power shot, and then missile blast, because you'll have a warhead available at this point, and then mag shot again. And mag shot will help vent your heat a lot, because one, if it's procced, it'll be free, and if they're burning, you will get 5 heat back, which is super nice. Then you would need to reapply your dots, and priority wise, you would want to power shot here, and then you'll get another proc for volatile warhead, which means you can missile blast again. And then if your heat is getting really high at this point, which it probably will be, you can power shot, vent heat, power shot, and then, obviously thermal detonator into gas, into mag shot again. This is basically how it'll flow over and over and over again. You do want to focus on trying to get your mag shot procs all the time, and keeping your dots on the target is definitely important. But overall, it's not as complicated as it might look. Just remember, these 2 dots are kind of like separate from the rotation, even though they're mandatory to have on your target if you want to do optimal damage. And then missile blast will proc if the person is low health, and if you're taking volatile warhead, I believe it's called, which will change your rotation a little bit. And again, it does give you 2 charges, so that's really good. That means you have supercharged gas up more often. This middle rotation kind of like opener is only possible if you take that talent, by the way. Now, don't take this as a rotational or opener or the best burst possible that you could do in PvP. It's going to be very different in PvP, and sometimes you want to be more mobile, and sometimes they're going to be different. It really varies on your situation. If you're able to cast, then this is optimally probably what you would want to do. But let's say you're not able to cast, you need to be on the move, and you can't afford to make yourself a target, so you gotta keep moving. You could literally just open with supercharged gas, regen right before you go into combat, get second gas. But let's say you can't get a second gas, just have that one. You can throw thermal detonator into mag shot, even though it's unprocced, but obviously use your supercharged gas with that, so you can auto crit it. Even if it's not procced, it'll still do a lot of damage, because the proc is what gives you heat reduction. Then go into an instant serrated, which will put your dot and then put your other dot, which is instant. And then you could use like power surge and instantly spread all your dots there. And then you could go into like the single target priority and go from there. Not that that's like a perfect way to do it, but if you do need to stay mobile, it's very important to understand exactly how your spec works. And also power shot is a very important ability, and so is missile blast if you can get the proc. The thing hits about 50k, which is roughly the same as thermal detonator. So there's a lot of damage to gain from that, especially if you're taking volatile warhead. And let's say you're not taking volatile warhead. It's more so important that you keep your dot spread going, and then also at the same time ensure that your incendiary basically never drops. So that's something that you definitely want to pay attention to, but for the most part, if you're able to cast, you won't actually use unload that much. And because you're not taking it on the move, again, you're not going to get full use of it. It's not the best ideal to clip it, but you totally can use it to just clip to get a mag blast if you want to. That's another thing that's really nice. It's the only ability that we can use where we can just immediately cancel or immediately get a mag blast or mag shot proc. I keep calling it blast because I keep thinking of power tech, my bad. But overall, if you want a more in-depth like rotational guide, I would definitely recommend checking out some of the guides that are out there for PvE specifically. This is just a general basic not in-depth kind of guide, and I don't want to linger this on for any longer than it already is, because this spec can look complicated, and there's not really any way that I can explain it to the point where it's no longer complicated. Unfortunately, with Carnage, as my main spec, I kind of like uncomplicated a little bit, but for the most part, sometimes things are just complicated and there's not much you can do about it. So going into game, I want to show you guys just a quick example. So what I mean by, let me pull it up here. So what I mean by regenning and getting your supercharged gas is that you'll use supercharged gas and then regen and get it again. So just to do an example rotation, so we get our max stacks, and then we regen again. You can do this in PvP, it's totally feasible. Doesn't take too long, though sometimes you may not want to do this. And we would just immediately go into our dots. For the most part, it's not too crazy. Obviously, I messed up there, but I'm just doing it from memory here. But for the most part, the reason why you'll be using Power Shot more is because of this passive right here. This oftentimes will just be more damage than, example, unload, because unload will cost you a lot, and it also won't be building as much supercharge as Power Shot would in the same time. But overall, pretty straightforward. There's not really anything else I can really show you guys. But let's say, the example of that one opener I was telling you, you could do this. Obviously, I didn't do my thing. For example, that's what you would do if you wanted to do a quick spread. It's not always the best thing to do, obviously. But if you're in a pinch, obviously, you can just do that, which is nice. So I just instantly reapply, and I'm still staying mobile, and then obviously set up instant for that. I'll just do that. So doing the dot spread, not incredibly hard. And there's not really anything else that's like super crazy. Obviously, jet out, I highly recommend it because of positioning, and positioning will be incredibly important as you are a stationary caster, but you will be able to take Super Colto and Trauma Regs, which I think are better than both of those, and then combine that with jet out. I feel like you have a slightly more solid kit than Arsenal. I think On the Move is just really dated and should become baseline, and it would just make everything better for both of the specs involved, including other specs that have to use On the Move or have to pick On the Move. Other than that, if you guys have any questions about the spec, I'd be more than happy to help. For the most part, it is complicated, but once you kind of understand the basics, it's not as bad.